thing. All right. Good stuff. Audio coming through okay? Great. That taken care of. All right. Good. Maybe. Okay. That looks good. Sweet. All right. All right. Good stuff. All right. Hello, everyone. It's camping season in LARP, so I've been a little bit busy going to events and doing things. At the last event, I won my first Bardic competition or singing. I got a little doodad. Yeah, champion. So I won the category for comedic song. That was fun. It was intentional for those who care, and I'm really proud of that because it's my first Bardic win in like the entire time I've been doing this, which spans like 10 years. So that's really cool. And the one I won before that, 2 weeks or several weeks ago, I won a weightlifting competition for hip thrusts. I won 2 of the 3 categories. So I won the 225 and 315 for reps. I won some really neat little trophies. So I'm going to grab the. No, I'm not. They're currently barricaded. But I won a giant peach that is yay big. It's quite the large peach. And a strawberry, which is yay big. Really good. Really happy with those. It's nice to be achieving things in a season, even though I'm not fighting, because it's way too hard to fight in a mask. So, yeah. Got, oh, it's supposed to be on this one. Okay, that's why. That's better, even though I am completely just washed out. Oh well, you do what you can. So, this was from or no, I don't know why I have 7/9, but it's the 9th of last month now. Um, it's just starting to get overgrown. This is June, not May, not June. It's currently June when I'm recording this. So May 9th. Here we go. I didn't have any podcasts or anything on, so you can kind of get some of the audio, hopefully, for like foresty sounds. I may or may not trip in this one. I definitely trip in the next one. But as you can see, everything's getting a lot more green. There's just so much that's growing in. Everything's blooming. All of the trees have come in. My little bridge still exists. So everything's going well. It's been kind of drier. As you can see, the creek is there and it's flowing, but it's kind of lower than normal. All of the frogs are maturing, so they're going to be hopping in, and you're going to catch me looking off to the creek side because I'm hearing them and I can't help but look. They're adorable. I'm thinking about transplanting some frogs into over there. This little space could use more, and the watery space behind here also could probably use some more. Just to have better coverage on mosquitoes for the spots I can't make drain. So there's option B. But overall, this is coming in nicely. This space tends to stay pretty traversable. So you're going to find me coming along this way and going around. But yeah, this is currently the state of the creek. This little waterfall is hardly making any noise at this point. I've got to clean up that entryway, but that's a nice little space. This continues to go well, not getting too grown in. The paths still exist, and I've clear cut some of the brush as it is a little unwieldy and it helps keep the ticks at bay. The lower the grass, the easier they are to manage, the less chance they have to like brush up against your clothes and stick onto you and eventually crawl. So this path is doing really well, really grown in. These elderberries are doing good. I'm glad I was able to clear without killing them. There's more on this side. This space is getting a remodel soon. Like, not this specifically, but back here. I've worked through a lot of this, and it's clearer, which is great. Great alternative to walking through the other space. But the grass is about knee high here. So all of these weeds and things are just kind of a menace. So that gets a little bit of work. But if you have a lawn and you're familiar, grass generally grows back real quick. I also appreciate me yeeting that stick into the oblivion. That was great. But I have a space for that over there. Unfortunately, you're not getting much of the like ambient forest noise and just more of the me ending up hitting tree branches and things as I bump into them, which is great. It's fine. Frogs are so good. So creek path. I wonder. No. All right. Always trying to catch them if I can, because it's just so good. They're so quick. So just be into the water where they're safe. But I love the little like pollywog, that their song that helps keep them safe. It's so good. Here is poison oak, so be aware of that if you're ever out and you see some leaves on vines on tree. That is what you're supposed to avoid. Not that people actually tell you that, like they just tell you not to use leaves, but you kind of gotta if you gotta. But the key thing is to not use leaves that are growing off of vines that are growing off trees. Use actual leaves coming off of sticks, like those. I come back to this space to show off that it is still growing in as well, even around my stick circle. this path is okay. It's not great, but it exists. Still needs some trimming here and there. Um, there's always a fine line on like how much I want the uh, actual path to be something you can just walk through and have no issues, and have some things that are yay high that you kind of gotta duck under and like manipulate the forest around you. It's it's always a gamble. Like how deforested and how paved do you want it? You don't want it too clean and too pure to be like, well, what am I doing out here? This is basically a park. Like that's not fun in the same vein that like this is still pure thicket like it is off to the side here. Like that is also unfun because you cannot get through that at all. So finding that happy medium is still where I'm at. I still feel like I bonk my head there every time, but it's only because of the cap. Like I don't hat normally in these scenarios. Like the only kind of hat I tend to use is a witch hat, but that's more like decorative, going through a campground. Like that's not really the play here. So picking up some stuff as different things that shouldn't exist get found and unearthed. Mostly plastic, honestly. Like sometimes beer cans, sometimes glass, but like a lot of it's that like heavy plastic. So just a reminder that, recycling plastic doesn't work and it doesn't biodegrade. So that's how it goes. Really happy with the work I'm doing through here. Uh, I've made several more paths out into the actual like cleared space that isn't considered woods. So that's everything you see beyond these points on the straightforward now. But like I created some giant piles that just got burned today, which I'm glad to get rid of those. But yeah, being able to actually like escape to the left if need be is really good, especially for me. But you know, um, it's important, especially like if you're not having a good time or freaking out or you need a very like expedient path. It's better to have them than not. Um, I can understand people getting frightened or um, concerned about animals or any sort of other thing. Although the biggest thing I'm pretty sure on the property is coyote, maybe fox, depending on how big it gets. But it's fairly safe. Um, but this little clearing has gotten some work done. It used to be all railroad ties that I've moved forward. Um, this path here is available and leads back into the path I was on so that we can start heading back through this way. So proud of that. It's all going really well. This space cleared up really nicely. It's a good little grotto. I probably need to work on the path going back to the path. This is a little overgrown. So I end up just kind of going around the way I came back, which works too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just better to have more paths than less. So, just continuing on, there's a lot of underbrush. It's not great. Some of it is absolutely poison ivy, as opposed to the poison oak that I'm pointing out on the trees. It's just all of the trio in my space. Luckily, no poison sumac in the woods, but that exists. So, this is another one, poison oak, where I've cleared through space to exit. This is got another whole pile, as you can see here, and the other pile down that way and that way. So I've done a ton of work. I noticed this is in the way, so I figured grab that and move it a little bit. But just to show this path does exist, this is just how like thicketed as it is from the outside. So you have a lot of privacy in the woods. It's really nice to just kind of work back through that. And my plan is to open up more paths in so it can be accessed kind of from any point, and you can kind of work your way back through depending on flooding or muddiness of the main path, because that's a problem, that there's not a lot of drainage. So sometimes it is actually better to go through the forested path. So it's just me working my way back in. Didn't miss much going through there, as it's pretty much the same, just more growth. It's so impressively green. I can never get over how quickly, when spring turns to summer, everything just goes to brush. I absolutely fell there. No big deal. It's important to know how to fall, as it happens. It's not a huge deal if you're prepared for it, or I suppose if you understand how to fall, versus if you are just like putting your hands out and hoping for the best. That'll likely get your hands hurt more than you would have been hurt otherwise. It's probably better to like guard important spaces depending on how you're falling and try to roll with it. But yeah, path is doing great. I'm really happy about it. That's another path out as I try to just kind of weave in here, enjoying these grottos that we've made, and just kind of like making sure that these spaces can still be traversed as we work through giving stink eye to more poison oak as I pass it by. It's really good, really proud. This space is just growing as I enjoy it. Just picking up another thing that appeared to be the bottom of a glass bottle. It's just amazing how many times you walk through this, and at different points you'll discover, or with rain and everything, it'll unearth. So it's important to keep your eyes out. And some people even talk about that as being luck, being able to see the minutia and like the finer details to understand if something's going to happen or not, and then go forward. So it's almost like a passive perception stat. Getting some of the audio there of different birds and whatnot, but it's so muted. It's a shame. It's always so hard when nature just doesn't come through properly. You can't take a picture of the sun or the moon or rainbows all the time or storms in their purity. There's just so much that it doesn't pick up. There's the minutia of what your ears pick up in the forest that they wouldn't on a recorded movie or video as such. It's so interesting, and it also helps on perception of self to like remind yourself that these little minutia and these things aren't being picked up. So it's good to be kind to yourself and be aware that the whole of you is not always seen. So there's our what used to be flower bed, fully gone to seed at this point. I've thought about making a wee basket out of the fronds because they're nice and long. My little bridges going over nearly dead creek, still useful, but it is a bit of a mess. So I'm about to deposit any kind of wood that I've been bringing back. This Japanese knotweed is such a pain. I hate it a lot. It is invasive, and there was a recent meme about if you have any anger issues, find invasive species and tear them apart. So that is part of what I do. But yeah, so glad that this has progressed. Going to take a quick drink and set up the next video. One moment. All right. Round 2. This is from the 17th of the incorrect month, not 2019, not July, but all the same. Was able to get out and get a video on for that. As you can see, things have grown in even more. They're hip height at this point for any kind of non-trimmed brush. It's a lot. So everything is pure green. There's actual canopy at this point. As you can see, the darker spaces getting shaded just from the tree cover. My work to deal with the Japanese knotweed has not gone well, as it is so aggressive. Hey, Beep Salt, thanks for the follow. Yeah, so this is the project I work on in real life. This is the creek that I tend to, and all of these spaces are just. But yeah, enjoy your lurk. So this the woods and like nature sounds didn't quite come through. I'm hoping that they would, but you might catch some frogs here or there. There's just a lot of different space and just kind of enjoying the progression of nature here. So I try to keep the path going. I try to use my hand scythe currently on these grassy areas because there's just a ton of upkeep, and I try not to use electric or power tools at all just because it's so invasive for everything. Try to be more spiritual about it, and it works out as a workout. So as you can see, the ground cover is almost complete at this point. The paths are a lot harder to see as these spaces are more fully covered. You can't even see some of the debris piles I have anymore, and that's how much the greenery is coming in. But this path I've worked through has been lovely. It is still a little bit mucky as I think I lose my shoe here trying to come through. Yeah, I slipped and need to go recover for a second. It is a complete mess, but it's not a big deal. I kind of prepared for this. I wear a lot of minimalist footwear, so it wasn't a big deal for me to reclaim it, but this space is one of those that could use more drainage, but I'm not quite sure how to get there as the ground is muddy, yet everything's growing in, so not quite sure what I can do to further that. But we've got our little creek path here, got plenty more frogs jumping in. They're doing so good. I really appreciate every day where I can wake up and see a frog or a toad and just vibe with nature. Also, there's been a lot of extra raccoon activity on this tree specifically. I love finding that nature is using the spaces so much more from everything. It's so good. So this forested path is doing really great. It's progressed a lot. I do still need to come through and take care of a lot of that poison oak I keep pointing out, but it's so much better than it was. I'm so happy with it. A lot of those smaller branches do just need to go. It's not worth the head bonks and people getting attacked by it. So more and more I just need to take a walk with my hand scythe and just like take care of it as I go. But yeah, this was one of those times where I like almost didn't get up and get out and do things. So I'm glad I am, and I'm glad I have been. So this was just kind of impromptu. So not specifically highlighting work, but work has been done. Um, there's just a lot of clearing, a lot of moving different parts around. But the path here is still good. I'm always on the lookout for more spaces I want to develop and make into grottos or clear through. Um, yeah, but I did come through here with the hand scythe like I've talked about, and I should actually probably grab just to like give a detail on it. So this is my clearing tool of choice. It is a little hand scythe. It works really well for clearing grass and brush, things that are small that will just kind of get in the way, more what people think a machete would be used for, often like any kind of grasses or things or small branches get taken out by this. Because of the way it catches, it allows the natural curvature of the plant to take itself out. Sorry about that. So these different spaces, when the grass and different plant bits get too high, this is one of the tools that's best to use there. So it lets me just kind of take care of path without having to do too much work. It's built at an angle. Hard to kind of gauge here, but this little bit that comes down, the way that works lets you get closer to the ground. So it's definitely built as a right-handed tool, but that's not a big issue for me, doing a lot of ambidextrous things. So that's what helps keep a lot of the brush in these areas below knee height. Not too concerned about getting it all the way out. So this is the path out. There's a lot of rosebush and wild berries in here, all with thorns. So keeping on top of this bit is very important. The thorns were the big starter for me getting through this, as there's so many and so much that really inhibits your going through. Like if you're going through and you're kind of like wading through sticks and leaves and stuff, it's not that big a deal. But when you get stuck by a thorn and it becomes a sliver, it just becomes this whole thing, negative reinforcing memory kind of thing. So it's really important for me to take that stuff out and manage a lot of the space. So I love all the danglies. Like even though this grapevine is choking out a lot of the space, having them dangle is just such good aesthetic. It's hard to actively pull them down and like further rip up the tree as it would. It's a lot, um, but this is my average workout of just making sure that this space is good, finding little bits, getting a hyperfixation on a spot, and really taking care of it. So I really do need a better space through here that I have to figure out. And there's going to be some planning and some pathing that goes into that, but it's these videos that really help me identify that kind of thing. As most of the time, like real life, we go through life and we follow the paths, and the paths are well worn, and we fall into these ruts that keep us in these paths and lines. So it's so important to break out and just look with new eyes or get a new perspective on just where you could be going or how you could be doing something that might be infinitely better, but you don't know till you get off the path and away from the mess of what has been done in the past and tradition. So even though I've been doing this in an attempt to keep on the same paths to show the growth and show the progression, being so bad at before pictures, like that was the initial concept of just being awful at before pictures. So if I can just take a video as I go through, bam, don't need to worry about that anymore. So we have our little yellow flowers that are coming in. They're super good. They last for a little bit. They have these weird brown specks on their leaves. Just choice. We've got more poison oak that I still haven't taken care of. But yeah, actually cleared out, like I said, these paths and the total amount of wood that was there was about 6 feet high and wide. Just this giant mass that all burned down within the past hour. And that was just, that break was me hearing that everything did burn down completely. Everything's good. No worries. It's always impressive, and it's always impressively hot, just how quick fires like these burn through. It's so good. Like, I have been working fire since I was 4, 5, something like that. So having 30 years of experience makes it super easy to get going, get all of it burned down to nothing, especially when that's the goal. So all of the trees creating these different arcs is really interesting and something you don't really notice when you're out there. So that's key, because a lot of my goal has been like anything that's more than a 45, or what would that be? Anyway, an acute angle has to go. but they're often a lot of things. Tripped again, no big deal. Um, that have this upward incline and then an arc. Those are so cool, and I love that these fronds, these or ferns, have spread a little bit. They're a neat little plant that is not from the area, but is slowly working its way through. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think they're taking away from anything. They're just adding to the local greenery. So, yep, added some bark to this path to make it a little bit more stable. I'm generally just trying to keep up with nature, which is a feat in and of itself. So, yeah. Since then, the path flooded a bit, so that railroad tie is actually the one that used to be up the creek here. Um, Flooding is always really interesting, and it's always hard to keep a good bridge when dealing with flooding waters, but it works out as things aren't that deep right now. And that is what I've got from that week. Like I said last week, I had event prep, so I haven't done much with that. I'll be sure to get some new video out today or this week and just try to keep it going. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. And I hope you have a magical day. I hope nature finds you and everything works out. Peace.